You know what?
And
Normally I would lead this interview, but I think you should lead this interview.
Okay. Well,
you're going to lead the next one then.
Okay.
You're going to be empowered.
I won't lead it, Lauren, but
when I kill you, I need to know what to do with everything.
Yeah.
And we're going to hop right into it.
I'm leaving that right in the recording. Yeah, we're going. Okay. We're going now.
Oh.
So, Nicole, I'm very excited to have you on here because I think that for whatever reason, and my intuition's telling me, when you deliver some of these messages to my wife, she's going to listen much more intently to you or intensely to you than to me.
She's prettier.
Yeah. And I also think some of the audience, I've talked a little bit about finance on the show and some of my personal takes, but again, I'm no expert, right? I just kind of share what I do.
You're pretty smart with it.
Well, I try to study and try to read, but I never position myself as a finance expert. Whenever people come to me for investment advice or finance advice, I'm like, listen, this is what I've read, but don't take my advice. So happy to have you on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Where should we start off here? Where do you feel you need the most help, Lauren?
Well, I want to give context of how you even got interested in money, because that's the first step for me is I have to get interested. So was there an epiphany in your life that you look back on where you're like, oh my God, I'm kind of interested in finance?
I hated finance and everything about money growing up. I grew up in an immigrant household, so I'm first generation American. So we didn't talk about stocks or bonds on, at the breakfast table with the Wall Street Journal. Like, it was none of that stuff. I grew up in a broken home and I needed to start working super early. So I just needed a job and I wanted to be in broadcasting. At first, I started as a poetry major. So this is what I said. If I could do this, you could do this. I started as a freaking poetry major. And then I went into journalism and wanted to go to local news. Back in the day, this is what old people had to do to get up to network news level. And I wanted a job in Milwaukee, the CBS station. That's what I thought was going to be my big break. And the station chief who I stalked in Chicago, I went to Northwestern, said that I don't get that job, but if I know anything about business news. And I was like, my armpits were already sweating. I was breaking out into hives thinking about it. My boyfriend in high school said he wanted to be a hedge fund manager. I thought he wanted to be in gardening. Like, I was the most clueless person in the history of the world. And I just said yes. And I lied. And I said, and I needed a job. And I was like, I could figure out harder things in life. It's ultimately a language, just like anything else. And so I joined the floor of the Chicago Merc as a business reporter. And I figured it out just at the School of Hard Knocks.
I love a lie when you are applying to jobs, just to be like, I can do it.
That's right.
When I got my bartending job, they're like, do you know how to make a rusty nail? I'm like, fuck
yeah.
yeah. What the fuck is a rusty nail?
Right.
Who the fuck? I like, do you put
What's
a rusty nail?
What's interesting about you though, Lauren, is even when you were in the job, you never figured that out. You never learned.
Take it until you make it, bitch.
That's right.
First of all, Northwestern's very hard college to get into, which we're going to get to. You mentioned you grew up in a broken home. What do you mean? Your family was a broken home? Do you mean like the money was scarce? What does that mean?
Both. My father was a drug addict and alcoholic, died of an overdose. My mother, I talk about in the book, I bailed her out of jail using cash under the sink behind the maxi pads when I was in middle school, actually. And so the only connection I had with money was like nefarious money, or any immigrant family, forget about it being dark and all of that, only uses cash. Like, there's no credit, there's no mortgage, none of that. That was never even something I knew. And so I had a really terrible relationship with money. Not only did I not know about it, but it was used for bad things. And, I wanted to do it better.
Is your mom now good with money?
No.
Still not? That's interesting. So if someone's sitting here saying, well, my parents weren't good with money, so I'm bad with money, that's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse. We tell ourselves so many excuses, like we didn't grow up with money, or we don't have enough money to start, or we're bad at math. Like, dude, a fifth grader can do the math that's required to get your financial life together. It's all the shit inside your head. It's the mean girl inside your head that we need to tell to sit down, because those are all excuses. Those are all stories.
I think you're so right about the narrative that we tell ourselves. Even when you just came in, I said, I'm bad with money. And I'm probably, I don't say I'm bad with money. I find it hard to understand, and I find it hard to digest and not that fun. But I am telling myself a narrative about it when I could be telling myself something different. So you're right about that.
Yeah. So what if we change that narrative?
We're changing.
Lauren.
Well, and what's interesting about you, Lauren, is that you are good at making money. You always have been, right? Like, and I'm not talking about just like large amounts. Like since you were a kid, you've had jobs, you've supported yourself, you've been financially stable, you've always paid your own bills. And now obviously in the level of success you've reached, you make money. So do you think it would be a benefit if you learn more about how to utilize it and things it could do now that you have money?
Yes, I think though what you just said, I always make money and I always find a way to make money. So that's why I think it's never been like a theme for me, because I always figure it out. You said it earlier, you figure it out. I think that's where, you know what, if you guys want to do a therapy session on me for this episode, I'm totally fine with it. You can use me as the guinea pig.
Intervention. Well, you have kids now. And so it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much money you keep. That matters.
And it's also for me about how is my money working for me while I'm sleeping.
It should.
Yes.
Because you work so hard for your money.
Yeah, that's important.
This is not all rainbows and butterflies. You guys built this yourselves. Like you work so hard for all of that. It's time it returned the favor, in my opinion.
Yes. So let's talk to a kindergartner that's listening, AKA me. Where do you even start? Like where is the place that you tell people, okay, this is the fundamental foundation?
Well, the first step to any recovery is admitting you have a problem. So we are done with step one. All my books are 12-step plans for that reason, because the only money problem you can't fix is the one you don't admit you have. So, okay, we're good. Step one, done. And then it's really about coming up with a plan. If you're starting from the beginning, Rich Bitch was my first book, and I thought it would either fail miserably or crush it. There was no middle ground. Like people were going to have feelings about it.
And it crushed it, yeah.
Thankfully, it did the latter. But it showed me that there was a need for this information in a way a fifth grader could understand or a kindergartner could understand. And that didn't exist. So coming up with a basic spending plan, I even changed some of the jargony stuff from budget. Budget sounds really scary. And a budget to me sounds like a crash diet. Right? Where you don't allow yourself small indulgences, you end up binging later on. I change it to a spending plan that allows you to have like the equivalent of a Hershey's Kiss, so you don't end up noshing on a big old hunk of chocolate cake in the middle of the night.
Yeah, like a bad advice to say like, hey, stop with the coffee, right?
Totally. So I'm like the only person that argues for the latte. And so it drove me crazy. I ended up going from the Merck floor to CNN as an anchor, and then CNBC as a morning anchor, and Bloomberg. And while I was talking to a bunch of those old rich white dudes on Wall Street, I was like, that's not the audience I want to reach. I want to reach Lauren. I want to reach everyone listening to this show, because there isn't a voice that talks to that. And everybody who does says, cut out the morning latte, go buy a house, don't buy a latte. I'm like, this is bullshit. There actually has to be a better way. And there is. You can buy a latte, you can rent, and the financial gods are not going to come down and get you.
So for all the people I'm sure it's like it ranges, but for the majority of people that seek you out, what do you see as the most common issue that they're dealing with to start?
Mostly debt. And debt is the only 4-letter word I don't like. So coming up with a spending plan, I break that down into the 3 E's: essentials, endgame, and extras, where 70% of your overall take-home pay goes to the essentials. So your food, your housing, your transportation, all that stuff. No one's ever talked to us about this. And so no more than half of that, so 35%, half of 70, goes to housing. And then 15% to the end game. So the future Michael, the future Lauren, your future family, retirement, investing, savings, all of that. And then 15% or no more than that to the extras. So allow yourself extras, because otherwise you're just gonna, if in the beginning of the year, somebody says, I cut out the morning latte, you'll be so proud of me. I'm like clipping coupons and whatever. I'm like, yeah, right. Come May, they bought a Gucci purse.
Okay, this is so where deprived. I get confused though. You just broke up these percentages. My brain does not think in percentages.
Think about it like this. If you make $100,000, so what you're saying, you make $100,000. Let's make $50,000. Basically, your housing should be 35% of 70. Was that like 12 and a, what is that? No, a little bit more, $17,500 or whatever should be your rent payment a year.
Yeah.
But okay, so you broke down the percentages, but am I looking at these percentages per month on like the 30th, or am I looking at it per week? Like how do you make sure you're staying on track with these percentages?
Well, you could do it either. And then if you're not making a consistent income, like a lot of people don't, freelancers, or if their income is precarious, if they're models or real estate agents or whatever, you can come up with a general estimate. And so, yeah, either monthly, yearly, whatever that is, come up with a plan and set it and forget it. I don't look at stock charts all day long. I mean, I come up with a basic plan, index funds and chill, which we can get to. for investing. Like I don't, day trade. There's none of that type of stuff.
Index funds and chill.
Yeah, like you're probably not even looking at the market right now and stress at all. Yeah, same, right? You're just like, because you know you're not getting out of it anyway. But we'll get to this. But so debt. Let's talk about debt, because I think so many people are overwhelmed by this, and they carry credit card debt, or they carry all sorts of different debt, student loans, whatever it may be. What is your first step or sets of advice to give someone to get out of debt? Because it sounds like that's, and I think you would agree, that's the most important part, is clearing your debt.
Yeah. So not all debt is created equal. And when I got my first credit card, I got into a boatload of debt. I started at CNN when I was 21. I needed clothes, of course. And so got into $5,000 of credit card debt and figured out how to get out of it by prioritizing to pulverize. And so if you look at all of your debt, you have to rank it by highest interest rate first. So let's say you have $100, like you found $100 on the ground, and you have, a $100 magical student loan bill. Then you want to pay that off, rip it up. It's cathartic, call it a day. Actually, you should take that $100, and if you have credit card debt and it's not a perfect number, you should put it toward that, because that debt is accumulating the fastest. So the highest interest rate debt is always going to be credit card debt. So that's the thing you want to get rid of first. And then, after that, if you have a car note or car loan, then you want to attack that, because a car is a depreciating asset. So you don't want to be borrowing on that. And then a mortgage. And then finally your student debt, because last. You can, creditors can take away your house. They can take away your car. They can't take away your brain.
Do you know that I never had a credit card until I got married?
Like a debit card?
I had a debit card with where I would put my bartending tips, but I never had a credit card.
But I want to talk about that as well.
Yeah. Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
Well, it's probably good you didn't accumulate bad debt, but it's probably
weird,
bad
right?
that you didn't build credit.
But I built credit through leasing my car. Now, I just want to know if I didn't, like I said, I don't know a lot about this. Is that a bad thing or a good thing, or neither or?
I think it's all case specific. I don't think it's a bad thing for you. I mean, has it hurt you in some way?
No, but Michael said I needed one to even build my credit stronger.
Well, for a period of time, it wasn't helping her, right? Because she didn't have a credit history, right? So like she couldn't utilize credit in the way she couldn't have used credit if she wanted to. I mean, that's just.
So would your former self have been responsible with that credit card? Would you have paid it off every month?
I don't know. I just felt that I didn't. It was kind of like heroin. I just wasn't going to try it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it was just, I wasn't going to, it's not that I would or I wouldn't. I don't know. I just didn't want to even try it. And because it just made me nervous. I would rather just take my tips, know how much I was making, put it in my debit card, and then build my credit with my lease payment for my car. And I'm just wondering.
Well, I think it is relevant to maybe scare some people that are carrying debt and paying the minimum, thinking that that's okay. Because I think a lot of people just haven't done the math exercise to understand what that means.
It means that it snowballs out of control. I mean, the compounding interest, we've seen how it's worked against us with credit cards, and the index funds and chill, which we can get to, is how it can work in your favor. You can use that same force of compound interest where your money makes money for you, interest on top of interest, and you can use that same force in your favor. But yeah, if you were scared of using credit cards, then that's fine. You now have a credit card, I assume, and pay it off every month, or how does it work?
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, it's paid off.
I have a credit card and I pay it off.
Yeah.
Every month.
Personally, what Lauren and I do, we both carry credit cards, but both on the business and personal. But every month we pay the balance in full.
Okay.
And we try not to spend more than we can afford to pay. Right?
Let me ask you this: what is the best credit card to get if you're starting out? Like, say you're 18 years old, you're out of high school, you want to get a credit card. What's the best one that you would recommend?
So if you can't get a credit card, you can get a secured credit card, which is basically like a credit card with training wheels. So you pay it off essentially in full, and then it's like a credit builder for you. And then as far as like which credit card, I mean, that's sort of up to you as to what you're going to need for points or whatever. Credit cards are awesome, though, if you can use them responsibly, because they have all sorts of protections, like warranties that you don't even know about, insurance or travel insurance and stuff like that. If somebody steals your debit card, then you're fucked. If somebody steals your credit card, then you have a lot more protection.
And also points, right?
Yeah.
Like points to trap. We had the points guy on and he was telling us.
We have the same birthday.
You do? You
He's
guys,
great.
We need to hear
Awesome.
you guys do a podcast like 100 times together because there's synergy, I feel like.
The best.
So what you're saying is if you're going to get a credit card, make sure you kind of look at all of the different ones before you pick.
Totally. And your APR is negotiable. So the APR is your interest rate on your credit card. And even if you're paying that off in full or you think you are, you can always negotiate it. Just because it comes on a fancy piece of paper doesn't mean it's gospel. So if they come back to you with a certain percentage, 15%, then you can negotiate that down. Not a lot of people know that, and not a lot of people think that any of that is negotiable. And if you are using it responsibly, ideally you would want to not max it out because your credit score is calculated with your utilization rate, which is a fancy term for just saying how much you use of the credit available to you. So if you have a $10,000 credit limit, you should only be using about $2,000 because then the creditors, the people that are analyzing your credit score know that you're responsible with it.
How important is your credit score?
It's like your financial report card. It's connected to so much. I mean, it's connected to whether you're, getting a higher interest rate or not. Not a lot of people share their credit interest rate, but it's all based on how good your credit score is.
Here's what I think, how I feel about, I actually think like this is a complicated subject because I think if you are in a place where you're not financially stable, maybe you're maxing cards or you're in debt or you're saving out, like maybe credit is not as important for you. And there's probably examples where it could work for you. But where it becomes very important for you is once you get a little financially stable and then you do want to go make that purchase on a home or you want to get that car, you want to get that thing, then it is very important because you could have good cash and good income, but if you have terrible credit, like one, it's going to affect your interest rate on your mortgage, and two, you might not even get approved.
Well, some financial experts say don't have a credit score, like use cash and have, a 0 credit score. And then I'm like, that is not realistic because shit happens, a pandemic happens, you get laid off, stuff goes wrong.
You want to have something.
You want to have good credit just when you need it. And, getting approved for an apartment or sometimes a job. Your credit score is basically like how responsible you are. And so the higher it is, it shows creditors. So whether those are the people giving you a mortgage or a credit card or a car note or a business loan or whatever kind of loan, just how responsible you are.
So let's say somebody has got to a position now where they've cleared their debt, they're not carrying interest, and they're just like, okay, now I have a financially stable job, I'm making an income. What would you tell those people in order to invest in their future? Like, where do they start? Is it, I know a lot of people say 10%. Do you start in a savings account? Do you go into index funds? Like, how do you start telling people to structure their financial life?
So starting with the reason as to why you're doing this, right? So the reason is because inflation typically is at 3% over time. Right now it's higher. And so you at least want to make more than that. So you're not essentially losing money in the future.
To clarify that, because I think people need to understand, meaning if your money is sitting in a savings account and inflation's out of control like it is right now, your cash is actually becoming less valuable every day.
That's right. Because you're not able to buy the same things tomorrow that you were yesterday.
It's why your grandpa says like, hey, I used to get that for a nickel, right? And obviously you can't do that.
Totally. So when we were kids, how much were movie tickets? $5 or something like that. And now they're, I don't even know, $20. That's inflation. Yep. And so you at least want to make sure that you're inflation proof in your money. And right now, interest rates are going up slightly, but you're not making that much money in a bank account. So you have to do something else to at least make 3% so that you're not losing money. And so if you go in knowing that, you want to protect yourself. And so the more you're making with interest, the riskier it becomes. So in the second part of Miss Independent, my last book, I talk about different things you can do based on risk. So the lowest risk is the lowest reward. So savings accounts, CDs, money market funds, money market accounts, those are all sort of like growing on top of
which is
each
probably
other.
where the majority of like people's parents and grandparents tell them to put their savings.
Right, exactly. So a CD is certificate of deposit. You go to a bank, you tie up your money. They give you a little bit more of a interest rate in order to do stuff with your money. And then you get to index funds. And then beyond that, there's more risky stuff, crypto and other things. So when I say index funds and chill, I am all about index funds or ETF and chill. And so what is an index fund? Have we heard on the news like the Dow is up, the Dow is down, the NASDAQ is up, or the S&P 500? Those are all indexes. And so
you guys, like, I'm just telling you what you said. What F? I'll be the guinea pig here. What?
So ETF is an exchange traded fund.
Okay. People are probably laughing at me.
No, you're not. They're not. They're asking the same thing. It was my bad.
You guys are like speaking Japanese.
It totally sounds like Japanese when you first start. It's true. And then it's like you go to Japan and you don't speak the language. You'd be super confused. If you go to Wall Street and you don't speak the language of money, you'll be super confused until you speak it and you're like, duh, that's not complicated anymore.
And just for people like high level, why people start to freak out when the market's up or down is if most people with money are investing in these markets and you see a downturn like this, if you're not diversified and you're not investing, as you say, a lot of your net worth and your cash is now off the table, especially if you sell, right? So that's why people are freaking out up and down, right?
I do love Charlie Munger. And I do. I love
There she is. What's an ETF? I love Charlie Munger. I do love
Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. And you've talked to me about how they seem to not give energy if it's up or down. And if it's down, they buy.
Because it's on sale.
Okay.
So.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go with this because I get
this.
So
high level, maybe we can talk about, we've talked about savings accounts and, money market, all that stuff, but we can maybe talk about index funds because I think this is what I proclaim, and I never tell people which ones, but say like, if you have savings and you're starting to, like, I think this is best. I would, tell me if I'm wrong. I think this is blanketly the best bet for the majority of people that don't want to get into day trading and picking individual stocks.
Which you shouldn't if you're just starting. Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of slips into my DMs about what to buy in the pandemic, Zoom or Peloton or whatever, crypto, this and that. No stock picking, especially if you're just starting out. There's no get rich quick anything. There's like an old dad joke. If you want to double your money, fold it in half. Like there's no get rich quick thing, period, end of story. And so it takes a minute. And so index funds, over time, the market has returned 7% inflation adjusted, right? So if you're trying to make more than 3%, you need to make more than inflation in order to just keep the same amount of money. So that's why, going toward the market over time and not the day-to-day stuff, which you need to put your blinders on or take a Valium or whatever you need to do, and not look at it because over time, that's what it's yielded.
Can you correct me if I butcher this? And Lauren, we're in index funds. So the way that this works is...
Okay, Michael, I'm not that...
No, but...
Come on, I know we're in index funds.
Say you have like the S&P 500. Tell me if I'm wrong. They take the top 500 performing companies and you have basically unlimited upside. Amazon goes and they grow. Great. But if the number 500 starts to crash and tumble, it is replaced by something that's below it. So you have limited downside. Is that correct?
Yeah, because so the Dow is like the 30 biggest stocks. Yep. The S&P 500 is the 500 or 505 technically biggest companies or stocks. And so, yeah, absolutely. If they go in the shitter, then they get replaced.
It gets replaced. Yeah. And the other thing is and maybe you could talk about this, you're diversified in these index funds because, so for right now, Target's tumbling.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're in an index fund, all of your net worth is not tied to Target. Maybe that's like 1% or 0.25% of your overall index fund. So you get the benefit when it's carrying up, but when it's going down, it doesn't drag your whole net worth down because other things are still carrying.
So you have a little piece of all of those 500 companies, essentially, but without having to buy all of them.
So there's not one place people should buy, is what you're saying. It's not a get rich quick. You don't want to just go for Zoom. You want to spread it across.
That's right.
Okay, this might be the most stupid question you've ever heard in your life.
Stop talking about my friend like that.
How does one even go about buying an index fund?
It's such a good question.
Is there an app? Do I call a 1-800 number? What am I doing here?
It's such a good question. So in all my books, I'm like, here's step by step, literally get a brokerage. So there's a difference between a bank and a brokerage. So the bank is where you put your savings. A brokerage is like, again, I'm not recommending one or the other. The one that you should go to is the one that you like. For whatever reason, you like the UX, UI of the app, I don't care. You like the colors, get after it. Schwab, E-Trade, Ally, those are all places that you can buy index funds or ETFs. So
Fidelity, Wealthfront, places like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you get it. So okay. So basically,
wait, hold on. So you pick the app and then what?
No, it's not just the app.
I log in?
So you open
Yes, then log in. Okay, so like you download Wealthfront or Schwab or whatever. Download that, set up an account, take some money from your bank account, transfer that into your brokerage account, and then buy an index fund. So there are a lot of different tickers. SPY is one of them. I'm not suggesting it. There's a bunch. They're all essentially
Vanguard
the same.
or whatever. But where I think this gets interesting, and this is where I think this is going to be a huge unlock for a lot of people listening. Say, they made $1,000 this month in their paycheck. How much are you suggesting they set aside? And what I think is interesting and what a great hack is when we started implementing this years ago, it's like you pick a percentage and it goes into that brokerage account and you just don't even think about it or touch it. It's almost like it's not your money anymore.
Set
but
it
it
and
is.
Forget it.
Yes.
Yeah. 15% ideally, or any percent. You could do 5%. You can do 2%. You can do 1%. You can do $100. It doesn't even matter. Hello, can we talk about Warren Buffett for a second? Warren Buffett said the greatest investment Americans can make are low-cost S&P 500 index funds. Warren Buffett, your BFF, put in his will to his own wife to put a majority of their money in index funds. It is.
Do I have a will that says stuff like that?
Yes, which we could talk about. Yeah, we'll offline about the will and everything.
Does your will give me Warren Buffett vibes?
Yeah, I think, and what she's touching on is this is like that set it and forget it. And I think this would benefit so many of our listeners where so many people are like, where do I save? Where do I invest? I'm like, if you have this brokerage account and you're in these index funds, you literally don't have to look at it. Like it could automatically every month go out of your checking account there. It's automatically invested and you're done. That's it.
Because, and the reason that Warren, we're on first name basis, Warren and Charlie say stuff like this is because it's really, really hard to beat the market. It's hard for any of these fund manager folks who have, like a publicist or whatever and saying they're making so much more than what the market is returning, 7% inflation adjusted, to actually work. Any hedge fund who says they're going to beat the market, historically, you invest in the market because it doesn't require work. And so it's hard to beat it. So just join it.
Okay, this is another stupid question. Once you're all signed up.
I'm not answering any more questions if they're prefaced with they're stupid.
This is an intelligent question,
Perfect.
I hope. Is this an app that you're checking like Instagram and adding to every day? Like, how much do you have to water your index fund? Like, do you check it once a week? Do you check it every morning, every night? What does that look like?
A great, intelligent, beautiful question.
Nicole. Michael doesn't say that when I ask questions like this.
Oh God, here we go.
Michael's like, Warren, don't say that out loud in front of anyone.
We're gonna go on a tangent. No, what did I say that about the other day?
He says that all the time. He goes, Lauren, you can't ask that question. No, I can ask the question. I don't mind to look.
I'm gonna remember the question, and it was
ignorant.
Something that we should pretend we never.
No, I'm learning about it. Okay. I'm asking as I learn.
It had nothing to do with finance. It was something even crazier. Okay. But anyways,
go ahead.
So you're asking about rebalancing. And so it's kind of like pruning a hedge, right? You don't do it all the time, but like when it gets out of control, you want to trim it so it's organized, right? And so once a year or something, if you have a certain amount set in stocks versus bonds, so like a really easy way to determine stocks versus bonds is take your age in bonds and then do the rest in stocks, for instance. So I'm 38. So like 40%, let's say in bonds would be, something that's textbook, and then the rest in stocks, because stocks are more risky. And so the older you get, the less risky you want to be. And so at the end of the year, if you look and you're like, okay, well now, 45% are in bonds based on how the market has gone, then you want to trim a little bit of that to get back to the 40% that you had started with. And so at the end of the year, you kind of rebalance. You don't really look at it. I don't look at it often.
One of my friends put a bunch of money into Facebook. It was doing well, and then he needed money, so he took stuff out of Facebook.
After how long?
It was quick.
Do you recommend like making money quick in index funds and taking it out?
No.
Okay. I would love for you to speak on patience.
Patience is a whole other thing, and for doctors and not for me. But for staying in any investment for tax reasons is really, really important.
Okay.
So if you sell anything before a year, then you're paying short-term capital gains tax. And all that means is that you're paying a shitload in taxes. And if you sell after a year, you're not. You're paying at ordinary income. So what you would normally pay with the rest of your money. And so, when people are doing all this, like, GameStop stuff, I had somebody on my show, like, who made $1 million, in a few days, but then got totally fucked by taxes.
And probably had no idea that they even had the tax
That's
obligation.
Right.
Yeah.
Huge, huge taxes. If they had kept it for a year, but that's not how those types of things, the stocks worked, then they wouldn't.
What's like old, crusty ball sack financial advice that people in your space keep saying that you disagree with? I know you mentioned the latte, but like, what are some things that you're just like, this is so outdated? How are they not evolving and pivoting?
The idea that you should buy a house. I think a house is a home. It's a place to nest your face off. It has all sorts of psychological things. A house is not a good investment. Your primary house is not a good investment. This is a huge, I think, misconception in the ballsack financial world. It's when they say, like, you can make a killing in your house. There is that misconception because inflation is not accounted for. When you say grandma bought a house for 50 grand and then sold it for 250 grand, when grandma bought that house, movie tickets were 15 cents or whatever.
The 50 grand was worth the 250 grand.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's not what's accounted for. And you guys now know, right? You look in the mirror and you're the landlord. You don't get that back. You put a bunch of money into your house that you're not going to get back. When people say that renting is like throwing money away, I'm like, there is a cost of living. It's like saying food is throwing your money away because you literally poop it out. Like, there is a cost that you have to pay to live, and you might not get all of it back, and that's okay.
Also with leasing, I have like a different mindset on this. I get bored with things, and sometimes I don't want to keep them. Like, I might get bored with Michael and want a second husband. Like, I want things to be like, so I
better figure out the financial literacy part first.
I know. I'm taking fucking notes.
I got you.
I'm going to call Nicole. If we ever get divorced, I'm going to call Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, call somebody.
Okay, call anyone. Call the police.
Don't even know our account, do you?
I'm attracted to leasing when it comes to, like, I loved when I leased my apartments when I was single. Like,
well, to put it out there too, Lauren and I, we bought a condo, but that was different because we were using it as an income property. But this is the first home that we bought, and we did it for very different reasons than for an investment, right? Like, we did it because we had a kid, we wanted to move, we knew. Yeah. Like, I look at this as a luxury at this point, and I also look at it as a big money pit. Like, the yard has to be done, this maintenance thing, something breaks here. Like, people don't account for all of those things too, and also they don't account for the unexpected, right? Like, there's stuff all the time that we have to fix in the house that changes that. Like, if I was just renting, you could just call the landlord and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. And this opportunity cost idea, right? So a lot of people become house poor. So let's say they've saved their money, they save 200 grand and buy $1 million house. And then they have no money left in savings. And then, God forbid, something happens. You can't go to the grocery store or to Sun Life with your mortgage. You just can't. And so what ends up happening is that you tie up all of your money in bricks and mortar. I don't know what houses are made of, all the stuff that houses are made of, and then you have no money left. Where in essence, you could take that money, and I talk about a lot of celebrities in this book. Beyonce's dad is hilarious if you go online and watch some of his videos about bringing sexy back to renting, because you can take that 200 grand and make a lot more with it if you invest it.
I totally agree. And also, like I said, I get bored. Maybe one day I want to live, here, and the next day I want to live there, and you can switch it up. Maybe one day you want a fireplace, and the next day you're like, no, I don't want a fireplace. I want a great backyard.
Can you talk about that for a bit? Like, say you're buying a $500,000 house and you're putting $100,000 down. Can you talk about what that $100,000 could actually potentially do in an index fund over, let's say, a period of 10, 15 years?
Yeah. So I'll give you an easy example. And I'm not even talking about a lot of money. You don't need a lot of money to start. You need the most time possible. Nobody in the history of the world has ever been upset that they invested earlier. No one has ever said, I'm glad I didn't invest earlier, right? If you start when you're 25 and put $100 in an S&P 500 index fund that tracks the market. By the time you're 65 and the time you retire, you have $1 million. If you start just 10 years later when you're 35 and you still put that $100 in the market, and that's only a $12,000 difference. So $100 times 12 months a year times 10 is $12,000. You have $350,000 by the time you're 65.
Because that extra years of 10 years of compounding interest is astronomical.
Totally. And $350,000 is a lot of money. It's not $1 million. And you're missing out on that time. So when you're younger, I think that's the time you should be putting your money to work for you more so.
Yeah, it's one of my bigger, and you can't even really call it a regret, but I was never taught these things. Like I went on this whole thing, when I was about 27, 28, where I started reading like your types of books, right? I started learning because nobody teaches people in school, which is a shame. Parents didn't really teach, a lot of people think that investing in the market is picking individual stocks. They don't know about index. And I really wish that somebody had taught me, because I would have been investing, and I was making money since I was, 18 years old. So I would have been doing it since then. And I tell all of our young friends and, her sister, my sister, like start now because it's such an advantage.
Yeah. Have you started one for Zaza?
Yep, we have.
Cool.
Yeah, we have. That's news to me.
Yeah. No, Zaza's
here's awesome. If you want to be efficient, just marry a husband that knows this. No, that's horrible advice. No. I'm just kidding. Which leads me to my next question. Do we need a secret fund away from our husbands? And how do we do it? Michael, plug your ears. Like, do we need like a fund that we're like funneling money into just in case he does something creepy fund?
I come from the school of hard knocks and that I've always had to have my own back in life. And so I'm not going to give advice that is all super buttoned up and probably what everyone else is going to say. And I think yes, you should always have your own back, no matter what. You could be in love. You could stay together forever. Fantastic. I also really advocate for prenups. I love this discussion and I love taking back the narrative, right? Because a lot of women say, oh, he's asking me for a prenup. No, bitch, like you bring up a prenup. You've worked really hard. You've created your own equity. People are marrying later in life. And so if you flip it around and say, no, I want to have a prenup, then I think it changes the power dynamic. It's more empowering. And so typically I would say for any relationship, you should have this financial talk at different stages. When you're moving in together, you should figure out whose name the bills are under, because the person whose name is not on the bills is not accumulating credit if the bills are paid on time. If the bills aren't paid on time and your name is on the bills, and your credit is fucked. I've advised a lot of women going through divorce who've been in both situations. And then when you get married, you split it up. I say yours, mine, and ours. So joint account and separate accounts. And so sometimes, you're going to have a situation where you make a lot different amounts of money. So instead of putting the same percentage in, I like to weight it. Instead of putting the same amount, I like to weight it. So putting 10% in feels the same to somebody making $100,000 versus $1 million. And so you're putting it into like all the shared stuff, and then you have your own accounts.
So another thing I think that you could speak on is like a Teresa Giudice situation where her husband was just giving her papers with things to sign, and she was signing. I can see how that happened. Like everyone was like, I can't believe she signed all this paperwork and she ended up in jail. I could see how your husband could be like, hey, like, or wife, hey, sign this. Like it's for like make something up, whatever. And people sign it. Like, how much due diligence should we be putting into what we're signing, what we're doing? The bill one was a great tip. Are you paying your bills on time? And
they're in our name. Okay. And you have personal and joint, and they both get money. But the thing is, you need to know where do you even know like our accounts are?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, all right.
Do you know the password?
I think I could guess.
Yeah, you probably can. But don't announce it on the show. Let's not do that.
Okay, I'm just being honest. But how important is it that we're like being our own? And you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like signing stuff, how important is it that we're being our own sort of cheerleader and guru within the relationship with money?
It's so important. Even if somebody else is handling it, and it's fine, like divide and conquer. You should definitely still know what's going on, even if somebody handles it. So like go over together, maybe once a year, all the accounts.
Oh my
I
God.
would love it. It would be,
Sit down. Do you have a financial advisor?
Throw up emoji. No, I'm
it's
going
the
to.
heart
You're inspiring
emoji.
me. Oh no, you're inspiring me.
Good.
You can tell me off air which bank account that I should go to do my own private.
I want
one.
to pivot here and
Away
talk
from
about
you offshore.
I want to pivot here and talk about. So say somebody is now they've got their index funds, they've got this kind of stable. What are mistakes you see people making
with investing?
But not just with investing, but just their whole financial life. Say they finally have got a little nest egg. It's like where do you see people going wrong?
Lately, it's with crypto.
Go off. Perfect show. Here, I'm going to sit back and file my nails.
The finance bros, I have words for them. I think it's really dangerous. Crypto is the riskiest of all. And so, there are other risky investments. I talk about REITs even. You can invest in real estate by not having a house or not having people live in a house. Investment property isn't for everyone. I don't like to deal with humans a lot and being their landlord. So you can invest in different things that could be risky, but gets you the exposure to that. Crypto is the riskiest of all of them. And so I think if you're going into crypto, limit it to 1% of your net worth. And everybody has a net worth. It's not just for rich people. So it's your assets minus your liabilities. So everything you own minus everything you owe is your net worth. And so if you want to play with crypto, Bitcoin, then 1%, no more than that, in my opinion. And so you can afford to lose 1% of your net worth. You kind of can't afford, in quotes, to miss out on the growth if 1% becomes 100%. But it is super, super risky. And that's what I'm worried about right now.
When you go to Vegas, do you gamble? I'm just curious, as someone who's so into money, do you gamble?
I have an ex that was a big gambler.
So it's not for you, is what you're saying.
Jam.
Okay. I just have a side question. I'm just wondering.
I've been at the blackjack tables all night.
Okay. I was just wondering. Michael likes what do you like, poker?
Yeah, but I mean, no, well, poker I categorize a little bit differently. That's a debate, but I would argue it's a game of skill. No, but I'll go to Vegas sometimes, and if I'm having fun, I'm going with the expectation that I'm probably losing, but I'm playing for fun with friends or whatever, having a couple. I think it's different. I don't ever go there with the expectation this is a money making endeavor for me. If it happens, great, but if I lose it, it's not something I'm losing sleep over.
Yeah, it's part of your fun money. It's your 15%.
Yes,
fun stuff. Mani-pedi, poker, whatever does it for you.
Mani-pedi, Michael. What's a story, and you don't have to name names, of a celebrity or influencer or someone that people think is so wealthy, but you've seen behind the scenes? I feel like you've seen things that a lot of people haven't seen. Maybe you can kind of expose sometimes what's actually going on.
I mean, forget about being house poor. I mean, a lot of people are poor and don't have any savings or don't have any nest egg and kind of, just like we've all seen on social media, make it out to be something else, like renting private jets as scenes to take pictures on. It's all gross. You can do that.
You know what else? Rent a private jet just to take the photo.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people too, and this is where a lot of people I think get in trouble, is they think that the money spigot is always going to be there, right? And I've been through personally a couple cycles where things are going very well and you just think it's going to keep going. And I think same, podcast-based influencers, you never know when it's going to dry up or market's going to turn or it's going to get tough, or even overnight, maybe an industry is going to get obliterated. And so people that think that it's never going to end and the cash is going to keep coming and they're not investing as they're making cash, that's always the saddest to me, right? It's someone's worked so hard, they've made a killing, they haven't invested, they haven't saved, they have debt, and then all of a sudden it dries up, but they still have the debt. I
mean, I think it was Kim Basinger who bought a town and then went bankrupt. I mean, there are so many celebrities who do that and sports figures when the going is good.
Athletes.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to the thing that's not about how much you make. And yes, you have this great earning potential, but it's how much you keep that really matters in the end of the day. Because also there's this thing called lifestyle creep. You guys have experienced this.
Tell us about
I'm
this.
Sure.
Tell us.
So when you get a raise or, you come into a windfall, which is the fancy word for making more money, whether it's an inheritance or, a good night in Vegas or whatever, then your lifestyle goes up. So the things that were nice to haves are now need to haves. So like daycare was a nice to have and now it's just the baseline. Or, other things within a house that used to be nice to haves are now just like bottom line. And so the more you make and the more your lifestyle goes up, the less you actually really have. And so I think people who get raises should try to live by the standard of living that they had before, because that's really where you're making money. If you make money and then everything goes up that you're spending, it's a wash.
That is such a good point. It's like experience stretching. That's a really, really good point. Experience stretching.
What's that?
Experience. Well, people that listen are going to get mad at me, but it's experience stretching is like you and I could be walking on the beach one day and say like, this is the best experience we've ever had. And then a year goes by and you're walking on a different beach and you maybe have a glass of wine, like this is going to be so great. And then another time goes by and you're like on a boat by that beach and like, this is great. And you're happy. And you just keep leveling. And then one day, maybe losing, you're on that same beach that used to make you the happiest in the world and actually depresses you because you've stretched it so far that something that used to be something that was this great experience is now something that's actually a source of pain or depression. And that's basically what people do with lifestyle creep too. We were just talking about this on the show. Like there was a time when we were all in, like, right out of high school, broke college kids living with roommates, best time of your life, right? No money, but drinking shitty Pabst beer or whatever it was. But it was like the best time ever.
Naughty light, Chuck.
Yeah. And
Smirnoff Ice.
And
bitch.
if you went back to that now as a 35, whatever year old parent, like you might think that this is the worst, most depressing experience in the world. And I think people forget how to contextualize these kind of moments in life, especially when you get a raise or a big windfall of cash or whatever.
Why are people going to be mad at you?
Well, because they've just heard me talk about that story a few times.
Oh, I like that story. Do you think more money, more problems?
It depends. Money is a tool. It can be used like a hammer to build a house or to tear it down. It can be used like superpowers for good or evil. It's really how you use it. I think in the end of the day, money without meaning is just paper or numbers in your bank account.
Bankruptcy. When is it strategic for someone to declare bankruptcy, or do you advise against it completely?
It's really, really tough to come back from bankruptcy. I think there has been a lot of rhetoric that bankruptcy just, makes everything magically go away, all of your credit card debt. It really can screw you for a lot of years. So that's something you have to weigh very, very carefully and talk to experts about with your specific situation.
If someone wanted to like hire you as an expert, I'm sure you're packed, jammed now. What would you say is the expertise? Do you look at someone's finances, their banks, everything? Like what do you look at when you're looking at someone's finances?
Yeah, it's important to do it holistically. And also, you don't need to be rich to have a financial advisor. By the way, not all financial people are created equal.
I want you to talk about this.
So you must find a fiduciary. Ask if this person is a fiduciary because they're working for you and not for the stuff they're selling. So
and there's a legal obligation,
yes.
Right? Yep.
So it's a difference between like a stylist and a woman at the Bloomies. So the woman at Bloomies is working on commission, working to sell you the stuff. The stylist, you pay a flat fee. Or a butcher versus a dietitian. The dietitian is working for you. And then the butcher just wants to sell their stuff, right? And so a fiduciary is working for you for a flat fee. A broker or somebody like that, vice president of blah, blah, blah bank, is selling their own stuff. And so if you're looking for a financial advisor, and you can, there's a lot of great ones out there. You don't need to go all the time. You can treat it like a personal trainer also, like go get the moves, do it yourself, and go, once a year if you want.
I'm trying to get Peter Maluk to come on here, but we haven't aligned schedules. He's a fiduciary, right?
Hope so.
Yeah.
Nicole, do you have a fiduciary? Fiduciary. Sounds like douche. Do you have a fiduciary yourself, or are you feel like you're so skilled with money that you don't even need that?
Oh, I totally do. Yeah. And I talk about that because shrinks need shrinks, trainers need trainers.
Absolutely. I think that's very, very, very smart. So say someone knows nothing about money. They pick up your book, Miss Independent. What are they going to get out of it? It's a 12-step situation. Tell us like what they can expect after closing the book, the value that they're going to extract.
Well, all of the jargon stuff I define hopefully in plain English. I think going into growing wealth is a really important thing to start as soon as possible and know what you're working toward. So goals have price tags, but not a lot of people even know how much money they want or what their number is for, when they retire or whatever. If somebody says to me, hey, I just want $1 million. Cool. Maybe you need more than $1 million. Maybe you need less than $1 million. First, figure out the life you want and then reverse engineer to figure out how to get the money to live the life you want.
That is really, really good advice. That is great advice because you're right. People are wishy-washy. Michael and I were just talking about this the other day. Gary Vee put out a video where he was like, 35-year-olds will come to me and be like, I want to sell my company for $100 million. But there's no context of the 100. Like it's just like a number that they shot out of their asshole. I think that's really, really smart to have like, what kind of lifestyle do you want? How do you want to live? Do you want to own a yacht or do you want to own a boat or do you want to just own a house? Like whatever it is, like you should really have a clear picture and work backwards. I think that's good advice.
Or rent a boat.
Or rent a boat.
Because sometimes these goals that you think you have are not within your reach. And that's not always true. You have to kind of double click on what you really want to use that for. Is it a boat like once a year? Can you then rent a boat? And how much does the yacht cost? And I actually break those down too. Can you get like a helicopter rental every once in a while? And does that fulfill it? They're not as expensive as you might think.
Also, if you buy a boat, and I've been observing this, Michael Bostic, it seems like it's a lot of fucking maintenance and work.
So is a house. I think that's a misconception people don't. So is a house. Like any kind of thing that you have to manage, right, and that you're responsible for, that is potentially a depreciating asset because you never know if it's appreciating is work, right? Like, I mean, now like that house takes up a good amount of my time, right? Like, I got to figure out the maintenance. I got to figure out the landscape. When you rent, you don't have to think about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
You furnish it, you leave it. Yeah. And when we would leave and go on vacation or something and we had our condos, we would just like lock the door, leave, don't even think about it. Now I go like, oh, what's going on here? There. Like people don't think about that stuff. I mean, it's really important to think about. And I also, to your point, the best guy to be is the best friend of the guy that owns the boat, right? All of these
best
things.
Gal.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you go, can you speak on the difference between being rich and being wealthy?
So I think poor people stay poor by acting like they're rich, and rich people or wealthy people stay wealthy by acting like they're poor. And so oftentimes the wealthiest people are the ones you don't even realize because they're the millionaires next door that aren't, shooting their wad load on like the newest, coolest bags and things like that, but are actually buying assets and not liabilities.
My boyfriend, Warren Buffett, goes to McDonald's every day and gets a $3 burger. Yeah, he gets a $3 burger and a Coca-Cola. He doesn't have any name brands or a Hermes belt.
Well, I mean, he also may be a little bit of a freak of nature because if he's really eating that much McDonald's and like still kicking and going this
love him. You know what? I love the juxtaposition of Warren Buffett eating McDonald's. Nothing makes me happier than that. And I love how he wears the same shirt every day. He's so cute. Warren, call me. You could teach me about money.
Listen, Warren, call me. I'm like, shit.
Okay. So who needs your book? Where can you find your book? Tell us your Instagram account. What can we get from your Instagram account if we know nothing about money? Give us all the details.
You can find me at Nicole Lapin wherever social media is served. And I talk about, what's going on right now in the economy and the market and what you need to know and call bullshit on stuff that is bullshit.
What's coming up for you?
In what sense? This weekend? My life?
This weekend? What's coming up for you with your business? What are we going to see from you? I feel like we're going to see big things.
Thank you. I've reached a lot of goals already. And so now I really am all about helping my former self, the girl who was so clueless and didn't know anything. And I'm not here to, make friends with all the financial services companies. I'm here to tell the real story about, the lies that we've been told, like we don't learn this stuff in school. And so it's a huge issue that we, even go to fancy colleges like I did and learn about, macroeconomics and not know how to write a check or something coming out of it. And so it's become my mission. I know it sounds Pollyanna-ish, but it's become my mission to make financial literacy accessible. I have 6 more books coming out, which will be 10 altogether. 10 and a half. Is a journal a book?
That's like a baby.
Like
a book baby. Is it? Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you were the valedictorian. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
At Northwestern, which is a big fucking deal. That's a hard school. I have so much respect for you because I think you're totally disrupting this industry.
Thanks.
You're making it sexy. If you look at you, you would never even think, oh my gosh, she's so smart with finance. It's probably a tool that you use in your toolbox when you go in the boardroom.
I love being underestimated.
If Michael and I divorce, I'm going to call you.
And Warren.
Yeah, and Warren.
Charlie can come too.
I'm gonna marry Warren.
Kill, marry, fuck.
I don't know if you're gonna be doing any of that with any of those guys at this point. I can probably say that.
Sprinkle a little Viagra.
But I definitely think everybody should go check you out and dive into all of your stuff, because I know we bounced around here a lot and covered different things. Some of them high level, some of them kind of, if you're not familiar, could maybe seem not as digestible. But all of this stuff, and I just want to reiterate, is a lot simpler at times than it sounds, right? And anyone can implement it at any stage. Right?
Totally. Retirement, insurance. I mean, it goes on. And it changes, at different stages of your life. And so there are women who have Rich Bitch for years and go back and check different sections out because, some things will be relevant to you at different points in your life.
Everyone go get your own fund. Miss Independent, the simple 12-step plan to start investing and grow your own wealth. Nicole, where can everyone find your Instagram? And can we do a giveaway of your book signed copy?
Let's do it.
Okay.
At Nicole Lapin.
Love it. You guys go follow her and tell us your favorite part of this episode on my latest post at Lauren Bostic. Go check out her book. I would also recommend Rich Bitch, which is how I found you in the first place. And thank you for my birthday flowers. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Step it up, Michael.
Yeah, step it up, Michael.
Great.